Vikings at Patriots, and this is Marco's best bet of the week. He's 7-1 on those best bets right here for free. Marco, what your bettors be looking at?
Well, obviously the question is Brett Favre, and have these Minnesota Vikings quit after the loss last week at Green Bay? I say no, and I also say I hope they bench Favre, sit him with the injury. We won't know till later in the week for sure, but I like this play either way, Favre or no Favre, but I like it better without Favre.
All right, so this is your best bet. What's behind it? What I'm hearing is you like Vikings. Why?
Well, this is as much a play against New England as it is with Minnesota. And again, we are 7-1 with the best bet. That one loss came last week when we had San Diego against New England. And again, don't want to talk a bad beat like in poker, but the San Diego game was a bad beat last week. They outgained New England 3.
What does this have to do with that?
This team, New England,
so you're saying New England's overrated?
New England's overrated. Their offense struggled last week. First of all, nobody's going to confuse the San Diego Charger defense with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They held New England last week to 179 yards.
But I guess this is my constant debate with the Cowboys backers, which I think we've seen how that goes, and the Chargers backers, which is this isn't fantasy sports. This isn't draft the guy that can run the fastest. I mean, for a Steelers fan, this is what throws me, is Steelers usually, a guy like Holmes, everyone's talking about their former wide receiver. Everyone's like, oh, the Jets are going to win it this year because they got Holmes. Pittsburgh sent him packing because we don't deal with that BS. The Jets do, and I guess we'll see how it turns out. The Chargers are renowned to put up with anything as long as you have talent. They draft that way. The Bengals draft that way. The Cowboys draft that way. Have you seen 3 underperformers this year? Isn't that the top 3 underperformers in the league? At what point are you going to say Belichick's way, a coach that goes 11-5 with a backup quarterback a couple years ago, where is that accounted for in here?
Oh, there's no question. When it comes to fundamentals, a coach like Belichick, his team is prepared every week. They don't do what the San Diego Chargers did last week. Early in the game, drive, and the guy catches the ball, rookie, his first NFL catch. He's so happy, caught it on a dive. Nobody touched him. He gets up and celebrate and throws the ball on the ground. New England guy picks it up and starts running the other direction.
That epitomizes what makes New England good and what makes these teams like the Chargers bad. So I just think it's handicappers have to be careful. And again, you're a sophisticated guy, 31 years. You're not falling in this trap, but you can't just look at the yards and look at how many all-pros a team have and handicap that way.
I'm looking at this game. I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings that even with all of the distractions they've had with Brett Favre, the poor performances they've had with Brett, with the turnovers in the last few weeks, this is a team that has been in every single ball game this year. Their largest defeat was 9 points, and that 9-point defeat came on a pick 6 in the final minute that made it a 9-point margin.
So I agree with you. Minnesota is probably underrated, and New England is probably properly rated. I don't think they're significantly overrated, but I mean, honestly, 7's a big number here. So if this is a value play, which I hear you, that's what I'm hearing, I tend to like what you're saying. Now here's the question, and I did a video, an actual webcam on this a while back. Whenever you have uncertainty at quarterback or a key position, is what they do is they make 2 lines. They say, okay, the line would be, maybe it'd be 9 without Favre and 6 with Favre, or some variation of that. Then they say, what's the percentage Favre is going to play, what the percentage he isn't, and then they put it somewhere in between those extremes based on that percentage. If it's 50-50, they put it right in the middle, et cetera, et cetera. So in your mind, at this number of 7, what do you think that their expectations are of him playing?
In my opinion, they don't expect him to play at 7.
So you think that if right now they announce Favre isn't going to play, this line doesn't move?
You might get a public rush to 7.5.
You might?
I think they've got ahead of this. I think Vegas is smart. Favre wants to play only because of the record. If his record wasn't...
How do you know this?
All you have to do
is
just
watch hate Favre.
I do hate Favre.
So, but let's not let that obscure our handicapping. My question is this. How many points is Favre worth?
In this, probably 3 points.
3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you think Favre is worth 3. And so the line was 4, and it's now, it opened 4, it's now
Right.
7. So you think they've made full adjustment saying Favre isn't playing?
Right. He's going to need a miracle worker to play on Sunday. And I really would be disappointed in Childress if he just starts Favre for a token series.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the game,
It-
right? If
it
he does
doesn't.
or doesn't. So here's the question, and you're handicapping this Vikings +7 with the backup quarterback.
With the backup quarterback.
And you see value there.
I think he gives them a better chance to win. First of all, they're going to rely heavily on. Have you watched Favre play in the last 3 weeks?
Absolutely.
He's been horrible.
This is the guy that you're saying is kept every game close except one.
But he is right. They would have won all those games if he wouldn't have been giving the ball away, like passing out Halloween
why are they
candy.
paying him $20 million? Why are they sending jets down to talk him into playing? I mean, do you ever think, wait a minute, the Vikings watch him day in and day out. They're watching the 22-man film. They understand this game better. You understand handicapping better than them, but they understand who's a good quarterback or not. Go ahead.
If you watch Childress's post-game press conference last week after the Green Bay game Sunday night, if you'd ask him right now, I'll bet you he regrets sending those guys down to Mississippi in August. Really, he's had enough. This is a guy that's really, he's been on the Brett bandwagon. He's been his supporter, but Brett is costing
we
his
don't
team.
need all this psychology. So let's just drill down. You're handicapping this with the backup quarterback +7, and you think there's great value. What do you think the line should be? What's the true line on this?
7 is a good number. It's a fair number. I think they can go into New England and beat New England.
All right, so you think the line should be 3?
We
We talk about true line and fair line. I totally get that the fair line is going to split the action, and you're saying 7 with the backup quarterback's a fair line. I actually disagree. I think it would be 8.5 or 9, but we'll see on that.
New England's not that good this year to be 8.
Well, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be. I'm saying that's what the public would demand. Before, I don't think the public is betting Vikings with a backup quarterback getting a touchdown or less. I think they need more. They might need 10. I guess we'll see on that. But I totally get what you're saying about the fair line. What's the true line? With a backup quarterback, what line splits this result 50-50 if it was played 1,000 times?
To me, 7.5, I think is fair.
So where's the value?
The value for me is in the handicap of the game. I'm handicapping Minnesota versus New England. I don't think New England is 7 points better than this team, regardless which guy's a quarterback.
Then you're misunderstanding my question, so let's double back. I'm asking, what is the true line? What line is going to split the result? So you're saying you don't think they're 7 points better. That 7 would skew the result to the Vikings. What line would split the result?
4.5, I think, would this
With the backup quarterback, the Vikings are 1.5 worse than New England.
Yes.
All right. Well, so you're taking, that's what handicapping is all about, is you're taking a real contrarian stand. Most people would think that's nuts, and you're saying that's how I see the game. So dig into do you have, what else other than
motivational? We've got an edge with Minnesota because of Randy Moss. You got Randy Moss that's going to be in meetings this week, both sides coordinators, offensive and defensive. He's going to tell them the offenses, the schemes that they run. Now, Belichick's going to be smart enough to make some changes this week, but still, it's going to be an edge for New England. You also got the fact that Randy Moss has a major chip on his shoulder. He feels he was slighted when he left. I like taking that angry player that's got something to prove when he goes into New England this week. Now, granted, Belichick's got something to prove too, because he wants to prove that, he made the right decision, that they can win without him. But when
he could rattle his 3 rings.
He could rattle his 3 rings, but it's true. But when I see a team that only had 179 yards against the San Diego Charger defense, that tells me this offense got problems.
All right, and you might be right. They've because it's really been something that falls into one of your pet theories, which I love, is that the first week after a loss, after a player loss, so it might be injury, it might be trade, it might be suspension, whatever, is the team rallies around, they step up, and typically that can happen a week, maybe 2, but it's hard to maintain. So it strikes me that all of a sudden now, once the Pats traded Moss, everyone said they gave up on this year. Now I'm hearing people say they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in football. 2 wins later, and it strikes me that New England, the fact they lost Moss is not being accounted for at all, and I'm not so sure that they're not overrated, like you say, a little bit.
Right, and if you honestly, and this is conversation, but if you look at the last 2 games that New England's won, that now has risen their stock, so to speak, they beat Baltimore. They were down 10 points in the fourth quarter.
Agreed.
Then they went to San Diego, and I told you all of the things that happened in that game.
Agreed. Now, actually, the Pats have the one loss. They've been outgained in 3 games. So you're right. It's fundamentals and winning close games versus ability, each play rep-wise to gain yards. The Pats are probably a little overrated. But again, Belichick, and again, I'd rather be getting 7, figuring the Pats might squeak it out because of those fundamentals. Usually you don't win a game by 14 or 17 because of fundamentals. Now, another thing is that tends to make me, though, look at the other side, and let me back up. Your point about Moss, I think, motivationally, if he's had if he's connected with his teammates in Minnesota, they're going to want to step up for him, too. And again, I don't know that dynamic at this point. But Minnie is bad on the road. They've only covered 1 of 7 on the road. And I think it's a situation where that home field, we talked about it last week, is really strong. And people are not used to there being such a disparity between home and road. But I think in the NFL anymore, but I think that Minnesota really does have that.
I agree with you. Any team that plays in a dome, it's a totally different situation playing outdoors.
And it's their 3rd road game in 4 weeks. They've had a lot of big games. This team might just be tired. This might be one of those games, almost like the Cowboys against the Giants, where everyone thought it's going to be their last stand, but in truth, they already had made their last stand.
I agree. That's a good point. But if I am correct and it's going to be Jackson going, that's the one thing that will get the team rallied around, because you got the injured player theory. And at this point, if nobody will admit it, but I really do believe a lot of the Viking players got to be tired of the Favre show too, and they'll really get up for Jackson in this game.
Wow, I see. I see it as, oh my God, the reason we had a chance at the Super Bowl is gone. But who knows? Again, there's a lot of psychology going on here for sure. Now, you can check out pregamewire.com, and what we have there is late-breaking, up-to-the-minute injury information. So when it comes to Favre's official announcement, or not Favre's necessarily, but the team's on his status, pregamewire.com is going to give you the breaking stuff. Let me make one suggestion before, and we're running out of time, before you make your official pick. If you do like Minnie here, wait. Because if the backup does play, the line's going to go up over, or the odds are better than it going up over 7 than it is going below 7.
Absolutely.
So if you're making this handicap on hoping the backup plays, then if whoever's following you should be agreeing with you, then wait later. You're probably going to get more in a touchdown if it falls your way. Now, if Favre actually plays, do you say no play, or you're playing it either way?
I'm still going to play the game, and the reason for that, RJ, is Favre is going to be on a short leash. He's not going to be that gunslinger mentality, which is a benefit, because that's what's hurt him.
It's a good point. Give us quickly your official projection.
I've got Minnesota 24-23 outright.
And this is your best bet,
My
and you're
best bet.
7-1 right now.
Absolutely.
All right, now it's your turn to continue the conversation in the comment section with Marco and me. And next up, we're going to be breaking down for the first time this year the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're going to New Orleans.